Oh, greetings, everyone. I'm back in Wisconsin and enjoying beautiful, beautiful weather here in the backyard. Uh, so if you hear cardinals singing and things like that, you're not going crazy. Uh, I make a short video here. I don't want to offer a plot summary of something you're reading. I don't want to offer spoilers. But I do want to assure you that if you haven't read this book before, you'll finish it very quickly. I pretty much read it on the airplane going and coming, so uh, it's an easy read, and the challenge for you, and even if you're reading it the second or for me probably the fourth time, um, you have to just slow down and look at some of the details, and be thinking of things as you read. Big ideas, things that represent, as I was saying somewhere, can't remember where now, that you want to be thinking as the discussion thread points to these areas of interest, um, all the way from um, character analysis of Katniss and her relationships with her mother, her sister, Gale, Peeta, and eventually you'll find with Snow, and now this will develop in a bigger detail in the next book. But at the end, by the end of this particular novel, you learn, despite the outcome, she has to survive because there's two more volumes. So I'm not suggesting anything about that. That he will become another character. And so, you think about names, for instance, capital and Panem, as it's pronounced in the movies in Latin. Panis. Pan means bread in Latin. And capital is an area. It is the main city, but it's a kind of a district of its own. No tributes come from capital. Um, they're just, as you might be thinking of it when you meet the people and see them. Um, fashion dictates their lives. It is what we would call conspicuous consumption there. Everybody, eats as much as they want, and those kinds of things, and all the reaping that comes from the 12 districts, all of which specialize in one area or the other. So you have ones that are very rich, like 1, 2, and 4, electronical equipment, all these kinds of things, and they're the ones that have the careers. I'll talk about them reason when I do the quiz. They actually, train for these games. And you think in terms, too, of other connections, such as the connection with all the Roman empires. You have Flavius, Octavia, all these, Cinna, and Cornelius Snow. Cornelius, I don't know if he's mentioned in his name in the first book, is a famous Roman. And we'll get into that more in the second book when we read about uh, bread and circuses, if you will. And this is the Hunger Games. It's like a gladiator arena in some ways, giving the tributes from each of the districts, the 12 that survive that you know of. More to come next time, obviously. There will be a District 13, or it wouldn't be mentioned much. Um, that this is like a Roman gladiator games. Also, Theseus. Theseus, the tribute that Theseus, his country of Thebes, had to pay to King Minos in Crete. They would send those virgins every year, and they'd be sacrificed to the Minotaur. And Theseus goes and tries to undo that. But the tributary, think of the terms in the idea of the Hunger Games, which is great entertainment for those in capital. Forced watching for most of the districts, not like 1, 2, perhaps, and 4, with mostly joy. If you find in the next book, you'll meet some of the people from the other districts. So you think about those names to remember them. There's the districts. The game makers wear purple robes, which were the robes that senators wore in the Republic years. Republican, if you want to call them that, years when Rome was a republic and had senators. All these kinds of things give it this feel. But um, in most other areas, for instance, of the book, there is a contemporary ring. And one of them, of course, is the 16-year-old, poor 16-year-old Katniss's role with respect to the men of her lives. I mean, she wears her father's jacket. Um, she remembers him fondly. She has a very difficult relationship with her mother. She adores her little sister Prim, who reminds her during the games of another young girl of 12 years old, first year um, in the games, in the lottery for the games, Rue. And so be aware of all these things as they go through, and you'll pick up on things. You also have the peacekeepers. I often, when I was making the quiz, I probably write peacemakers. The peacekeepers are troops sent from capital to all the districts, and you'll find that this is going to change the role of them in District 12 in particular, where you have uh, the leader, Darius takes, likes to have turkey. They're very copacetic. I mean that they are the police force, if you will, and as you find too, the army. There had been a civil war. Um, all 13 districts revolted against uh, capital in the country of Panem, that's created after ecological nuclear disaster hit the United States. It's probably located in the Rockies in Denver. Um, and all the other districts pay tribute um, to that, and you're going to see how that works. They're always showing the looping story of what happened to District 13, uh, which is destroyed. And it's been 74 years since the uh, treaty, where all them, pledge allegiance to capital, and where capital reaps the benefits of everything they have to send in tribute, not only raw materials and manufactured materials, but these two people, a man and a woman, each year, as a reminder of the punishment that could come again. So they have all the rules, like you could be shot for going into the woods beyond the fence. That in District 12 is never electrified. I think they have. I wrote 5,000 and maybe 8,000 people. I mean, what they do is it's just Appalachia, which is kind of fun when you see the movie because you can see that this is this coal mining district, and you have the meadow, the open area, and you have other kinds of things like the uh, I'm trying to remember where they live. I've mentioned it before, where the poorer people who go to the mines live. Oh, darn it, I can't think of the name right now, but know that one. And then in that area, there's also a middle class, and that's Peta's family. Peta is a baker, and they're much better off than uh, the people in the hub. Which was a place that was connected with the coal industry before they upgraded how they get the coal out, and that's where the black market is, to which where Gale and Katniss do their trading. The Seam is the name of the place where there's basically no indoor plumbing a lot of the times. There's certainly no indoor heating. And things along those lines. This is the poverty, and this is where in the beginning we learn that after the father was killed in a mine explosion, as was Gale's father, the family just has to scratch by for a living, and eventually, thanks to Peta's giving bread, um, she gets the idea when she sees the dandelion that she can actually support herself. Um, you have Gale, Peter, Prim. Haymitch is the drunk Haymitch. You'll learn more of his stories. You want to know these things. Why does Haymitch just stay drunk all the time? And all these other kinds of things. Usually people think if you win, then you're, set for life. You have your own special house, Victory Square, basically, and you're rich. Um, and you never have to worry again. And so then when you wonder, well, why the hell does he drink all the time? These questions will be answered. Book one in the trilogy lays a strong foundation for the entire trilogy. Um, and you learn different people. You learn the names like Cato. There's another Roman for you. He's one of the careers, um, and he's one of the people who's dangerous. That's why Haymitch, who is now has to be the kind of a tutor and sponsor, if you will, gets sponsors for them in the ring because everybody bets, even the poorest people. It's a game. It's like reality TV. I mean, I'm sure that affected her presentation here. Is that there's not much on television. All media is very important and is pretty much completely controlled. Um, they don't have telephones in the regular house. Haymitch has one because that's one of the things you get. Um, Now, the other things to remember, as I said, the name thing with Rome and Greek mythology, uh, leadership. I mean, Snow is not elected every year, and we don't even know exactly how long he's been president. But pay attention when you get to Capitol because it's an interesting place. I mean, one of the things she notices right away is the way that these people talk. Um, and we call this a rising inflection. It's the way California Valley girls speak, and it's the fashions change all the time. People have, they were even talking about giving poor Katniss surgery to get where they want. That's why she says later on, everybody kind of looks young, including Flickerman, the game announcers. But think of it too as just incredible display. But don't ever forget what it actually is, as opposed to what it tries to present itself as, with the recap of past games and things like this, is always a reminder of the punishment and the need to keep things from going into crisis. And that's why Snow is very careful about the games. And, as you're going to find out, why he's angry, if you will, at the end, um, because something extraordinary will happen. And that sets up everything for the next books. Everything's here. District 13, uh, the simmering revolt in various of the districts, all walled off, all kept out of communication, their lives regimented. As a matter of fact, 12 is probably the least regimented of all of them because they have the least to offer, as you're going to come to find out. So a couple of things are going on all the time. Again, is that Snow has to, I mean, he wants the sameness. There are differences in the games, but the outcome is controlled, and the sense of obligation and crisis is maintained so that he has a reason for his iron fist, if you will. Uh, you're going to meet other people. Rue is important. Remember her, and the importance will grow. And pay attention too to, Katniss doesn't see herself either as beautiful or as particularly rebellious, but she does hunt in the forbidden area, um, and she does things that you're going to see. And Rue is one of the important ones where she likes the signs of revolt, and it turns out she's wearing one of the signs of revolt, the so-called mocking Jay. One of the things too about the games is the use of technology, and technology is basically what we would call a double-edged sword. We have something that's called dual-use technologies. That is to say, and this is Iran is the good example here of Iranians. They're purifying uranium, and they have centrifuges for doing it. Once you purify uranium to the point where you can use it in a nuclear reactor, you're also at the point where you need it to be so you can make a couple more changes and you have atomic bombs. And in the games itself, you'll find there are mutants or mutts, they call them. And these are actually, as you come to find out, the kinds of things that go on in the games are also often practiced for a different kind of use that's not, deadly entertainment, as in Battle Royal, or Battle Royale, which is a Japanese novel and film you might look at that has a lot in common with the Hunger Games. But here, the other example of this sort of technology is the whole idea of the mocking jay, and that they repeat songs. Remember, the father was a great singer, a beautiful singer, and the birds would all respond to him. And what happens is you had these jabberjays um, that were created during the war by Capital. And what they could do is memorize human speech and then return it to Capital. Um, and so that they could find out, who's doing what. Uh, these Jays were only male, and the opposition, the districts, before they were necessarily divided up the way they are now, the revolting armies found out what was going on, and so they started to uh, manipulate the fact. If you have a turn double agent who's actually a triple agent, is what we're talking about here. Is that there's someone who's posing to be something who's something else. So they stopped using them. But what they didn't do, and this is the unintended consequences of technology, if you will, something very contemporary, as with the gender roles and things along those lines. The jabberjays mated with female mockingbirds. Mockingbirds also will actually. That's why I've been calling a mockingbird. Is they'll repeat songs too, and they repeated with them, and then you have the mocking jays that are a separate species as a result. And they're in the woods all over Panem. So Rue knows the song. Rue uses the song to climb to the tops of the trees, to sing it, and the birds will spread out if they like you, the way they liked Gail's father, and give information. So they're still around, but they become a symbol, if you will, through our girl, Katniss. They become a symbol for revolt as uh, and that's part of it is the connection with the Jabberjays. Um, so that actually that's given to her by Madge, who is the mayor's daughter. Um, it's one of their mother who's always suffering from headaches and things like this. You'll find out why, by the way. Don't follow the movie, in other words, because Katniss finds the mockingbird, Mockingjay's pin when she's in the hub in the movie with a person who's very much like Greasy Sue, who makes the soups and the stews. So be careful about getting the movie and the film and the novel mixed up. So you want to take your care here, and so you don't make mistakes. And uh, know this too, that everything's very well organized here. Um, let's get back to Cornelius Snow and the idea of the Hunger Games. Every year it's a lot like the lottery by Shirley Jackson, which you might read. I think I'll link it for you if I can. It's available online. The lottery. Uh, Snow wants stability. Snow doesn't like change. And then you have the whole system that's set up that is very political and very much like um, the situation and that many argue in the United States, where the old saying is the rich get richer. This is obviously true on a number of scales in Panem, where the richest are the ones who actually, in the long run, do the least. They're all part of a reality game kind of society. But out in the hinterlands of the 11 and 12 and 8 and those places, there's a tremendous repression. And the games themselves are a part of that oppression. And look how the system is. You can get something uh, called a tesserae, Tesserae. And what that is that for the years you're in the lottery, your name goes in once, twice, three, four. So at the end, I think you have 12 possible chances with all the other people in the lottery. Everybody who's between those ages. And Gale is in his last, and he has 42. And the reason is that when his father dies, and by the way, Katniss too, um, they take a tessera. Now, a tessera just means that you get a year's meager supply of oil and some foodstuffs, wheat, chaff, not really good at all, so that you won't starve to death. You can think of it as a food stamp with a real high price tag to it. So the more times you get them, and Gale is getting them for his family, uh, so they'll survive, the more chances he has of being chosen on what's called the reaping day. And I just love that, the reaping, you reap what you sow, and things along those. It's kind of a human harvest. It's turning people into basically a commodity. And then the commodity there of these people is this televised game. They become actors in a reality show with dire consequences that's repeated and looped all the time. So it's a strange form of entertainment, if you will. But that tessera is an interesting thing to me. It's it means that there's no equality. I mean, if you're Peeta's family, um, and Peeta's family, of course, they never get to eat even the fresh produce that they make. And this is news to Katniss, because they don't make enough money. Everybody's sort of caught up in this, but they make enough money so that Peeta does not have to protect his brothers and sisters, uh, go and get the Tessera, so that he has a greater advantage over Gale. And this is, this kind of advantage and whatnot plays into the mixed up teenage relationship that she feels. She's the Katniss feels. You find it, this kind of divisions and things like that displayed with the interior psychology of Katniss, who tells the story, but you find it also kind of a macro of Panem itself, which is psychotic. But this guarantees an inequality. This guarantees that the least able are more likely to become a tribute. And so there's an economic impact, is what I want you to see. And one could argue, you see, in these kinds of areas, well, what do you do with those with less? Food stamps. I mean, all these things come out. I'm not arguing for any specific answer to this, but we find contemporary issues at display, found related to a dystopian novel. Whether or not it's imaginative doesn't mean it's not about the truth. Fiction is not dependent upon facts, but fiction aims for truth. And as I said in another of the videos about this whole idea of a dystopia, science fiction wants you to believe in possibilities. It insists upon it. Now, these possibilities are not dictated by scientific fact in a dystopia. We don't have any long explanations about how a hovercraft operates. We don't need them. This is a different kind of reality, and I think it's grounded on the personal. It's grounded certainly on Katniss's relationships. She feels awkward about her body, for instance. She is not sure about her feelings for Gale, whom she's very close to, and then with Peeta, who loves her without question. I mean, they're all adolescents, yet we find this is a reality that young readers contend with, and you buy into the book because you believe in the way that Katniss feels. It's important in this particular case because it is about a female character who will become more empowered as we go along, but who at this particular point is uncertain about who she is, what her motivations are, but her feelings are true for someone like her sister, whom she dearly loves. But she doesn't know how quite to put a finger on what's going on with Gale at 16 years old. There's a lot going on. So be aware of that, but also be aware that the reality of the novel and the creation of this country, Panem, extends beyond the interior psychological conflict that Katniss experiences. Now, that said, that reality in which she lives also um, accounts for a lot of the ways she feels. For instance, Gale, that you're going to meet right away, just hates capital, and he rails against it. He gets angry, and she's saying, well, you're going to scare all the animals away. And her feeling is, well, we just got to live with it. That's just the way it is now, and screaming's not going to do any good. Now, right there, those feelings and what you get when you meet Gale, and he wants to just leave, for instance, that carries over to the next two books. I mean, so there's a great consistency as you move from one book to the other. For instance, her relationship with her mother, her desire to protect Prim. Uh, that will grow, that whole idea of the mother. I mean, remember, she's mad at the mother because when the father dies, she chose to live in the impoverished area of the Seam. She's an apothecary's family. That's why her family are what we would almost call doctors, but they're herbal, and they get some supplies from capital. But they're more of the middle class, and she decided not to marry, let's say, Peeta's father. In fact, that's true, and instead married Katniss's mother. Now, when he dies, she goes into complete depression, and Katniss, of course, is just furious with her, um, and probably we don't we can understand why the mother is just completely useless. But of course, at the age of Katniss is when you can't control, you get angry because you can't understand it, and so you have kind of a real emotions connected here in a created world of the imagination, but they go together. So think about those things when you're reading, that there are themes that are here. There are important symbols. There are important symbols like the mocking J pin. That pin is important. And Cinna, her stylist, Cinna has asked to be the stylist for District 12, the least impressive of all the things. And he says he doesn't hurt others. He uses his art to express his angers and his feelings. Pay attention to that. And he is honest with her, with Katniss, and even look at that, the whole thing with the body and whatnot. I mean, she just has to give herself to these stylists who even consider surgical surgical things to make her breasts bigger, probably, and things along this line. But he also is the great imagination of creating what we call the girl on fire. I mean, he really coins that phrase, and that does not go away. And she actually is on fire at one point during the games, and she has to play. And she realizes what she has to do because it's all a matter of presentation. So there's an artificialness about it, about the same as in reality TV. She'll have to play the game of being the loved object of Peeta, who actually loves her. And you get inside the head about those things. It's an adventure story too, obviously, how to survive these vicious games, and the games themselves are also one of her enemies. It says just remember who your enemy is in book 2 as you're going to come up. Remember, there's fires, and there are these mutated beasts that try to kill them, and in the end, you'll find out what happens. Peeta and she will survive, and you'll want to keep your eye on that. I'll probably have more to say specifically about that when I make a video about the quiz, either today or tomorrow. Now, at the end of this one, I'm going to tell you that there could be some glitches on Wednesday. My wife and I are going to Morocco. More about the trip later, and I'll put it up on Facebook and things along those lines. But we'll be there for 2 weeks. I mean, we have some good connections there, as it turns out, so I'll have access whenever I need it to high-speed internet. So it's not like we're not going to be in touch, okay? But I'm going to try to get as much done over the first 2 weeks. as I can before I leave. So just the idea is if you write me and I don't get back to you immediately, one of the reasons is I might not be right at that time in internet uh, communication. I'm sure we're going to be staying at a colleague's beach house in a place called Tetuan, about an hour from Tangiers. And I'm told we have DSL there. I'll wait and see what everything is before I come back. But we're going to be connected with a school while we're there doing some investigating, and I'll have internet connection there too. So as soon as I figure these things out, I'll let you know. We'll be in good shape, and otherwise, I'll be in touch soon enough. Look at the videos, look at the notes, enjoy the reading. Take part in those discussion group threads, use information from here. Otherwise, but try to be specific in what you're talking about. Whatever conflict it is, roam all the way you want in this one, and the conversation will continue over the next 2 weeks with the other 2 books in this trilogy. But you're going to find that what goes on here and some of the issues involved will appear again in the other 5 books that we'll read. So there's some exciting reading this semester. I'm really excited about this class, and I'm hoping that if everything goes as I want to, I'll teach it again next summer. It may change a couple novels, but we'll see. Probably not after the first year because I have to make all these videos. But enjoy it. Stay in touch. Again, get to those discussion threads. Think of ideas and be specific. Share quotations and internet connections. Enjoy.